Idaho asked himself. He saw the tenor of Alia's suspicions now. After all, Duncan Idaho had been personal house guard to the Lady Jessica for many years. Duncan? Alia pressed. You should inquire closely after any advisory legislation which may be under preparation for the next session of the Lanford, Idaho said. They might take the legal position that a regency can't veto certain kinds of legislation and specifically 136 adjustments of taxation and the policing of cartels. There are others, but 11 not a very good pragmatic bet on their part. CFSH0 we Massachusetts. Position, Roland said. I agree, Alia said. The Sardaukar have no teeth and we still have our firm and fearful, Alia, Idaho said. Our enemies would like nothing better than to make us appear monstrous. No matter how many legions you command, power ultimately rides on popular sufferance in an empire as scattered as this one. Popular sufferance? Roland asked. You mean great house sufferance, Alia said. And how many great houses will we face under this new alliance? Idaho asked. Ani is collecting in strange places. The fringes? Roland asked. Idaho shrugged. It was an unanswerable question. All of them suspected that one day the Lilacs or technological tinkerers on the imperial fringes would nullify the Holtzman effect. On that day, shields would be useless. The whole precarious balance which maintained planetary feudatories would collapse. Alia refused to consider that possibility. We'll ride with what we have, she said, and what we have is a certain knowledge throughout the Chong Directorate that we can destroy the spice, if they force us to it. They won't risk that. Back to Chong again, Roland said. Unless someone has managed to duplicate the sand-trout sandworm cycles on another planet, Idaho said. He looked speculatively at Roland, excited by this question. Seleucia Secundus? Boy contacts there remain reliable, Roland said. Not Seleucia. Then my answer stands, Alia said, staring at Idaho. We ride with what we have. My Ruth, Idaho thought, he said, why'd you drag me away from important work? You could have worked this out yourself. Don't take that tone with me. Alia snapped. Idaho's eyes went wide. For an instant, he'd seen the alien on Alia's face, and it was a disconcerting sight. He turned his attention to Roland, but she had not seen him or gave that appearance. You don't need an elementary education, Alia said, her voice still edged with alien anger. Idaho managed a rueful smile, but his breast ached. We never get far from wealth and all of its masks when we deal with power, Roland drawled. Paul was a social mutation 137 and, as such, we have to remember that he shifted the old balance of wealth. Such mutations are not irreversible, Alia said, turning away from them, as though she'd not exposed her terrible difference. Wherever there's wealth in this empire, they know this. Tilly also low. Roland said that there are 3 people who could perpetuate that mutation, the twins and, she pointed at Alia. Are they insane, this pair? Idaho wondered. They will try to assassinate me. Alia rasped, and Idaho sat in shocked silence, his mental awareness whirling. Assassinate Alia? Why? They could discredit her too easily. They could cut her out of the Fremen pack and hunt her down at will. But the twins, now, he knew he was not in the proper mental for such an assessment, but he had to try. He had to be as precise as possible. At the same time, he knew that precise thinking contained and digested absolutes. Nature was not precise. The universe was not precise when reduced to his scale. It was vague and fuzzy, full of unexpected movements and changes. Humankind, as a whole, had to be entered into this computation as a natural phenomenon. And the whole process of precise analysis represented a chopping off, a remove from the ongoing current of the universe. He had to get at that current, see it in motion. We were right to focus on Chong and the Lanford, Roland drawled. And Duncan's suggestion offer the first line of inquiry for money, as a translation of energy can't be separated from the energy it expresses, Alia said. We all know this. But we have to answer 3 specific questions. When? Using what weapons? Where? The twins, Idaho thought. If the twins are in danger, not Alia. You're not interested in war House? Roland asked. If House Karina or Chong or any other group employ human instruments on this planet, Alia said we stand a better than 60% chance of finding them before they act. knowing when they'll act and where gives us a bigger leverage on those ons. How? That's just asking what weapons? Why can't they see it, as I see it? Idaho wondered. All right, Roland said. When attention is focused on someone else, Alia said. 138 attention was focused on your mother at the convocation. There was no attempt. Wrong place, Alia said. What is she doing? Idaho wondered. Where, then? Roland asked. Right here in the keep, Alia said. It's the place where I feel most secure and least on my guard. What weapons? Roland asked. Conventional and something a Fremen might have on his person. Poison kryptonite. Maul a pistol. They've not tried a hunter-seeker in a long while, Roland said. Wouldn't work in a crowd, Alia said. There'll have to be a crowd. Biological weapon? Roland asked. An infectious agent? Alia asked, not masking her incredulity. How could Roland think an infectious agent would succeed against the immunological barriers which protected Anetrides? It was thinking more in the line of some animal, Roland said, a small pet, say, trained to bite a specific victim, inflicting a poison with its bite. House ferrets will prevent that, Alia said, one of them, then? Roland asked. Couldn't be done. The house ferrets would reject an outsider, kill it. You know that. I was just exploring possibilities in the hope that I'll alert my guards, Alia said. As Alia said guards, Idaho put a hand over his lilac eyes, trying to prevent the demanding involvement which swept over him. It was Regia, the movement of infinity, as expressed by life, the latent cup of total immersion in Mendit awareness which lay in wait for every Mendit. It threw his awareness onto the universe like a net, falling, defining the shapes within it. He saw the twins crouching in darkness, while giant claws raked the air about them. Look, he whispered. What? Alia looked at him, as though surprised to find him still there. He took his hand from his eyes. The garments that House Perino sent, he asked, have they been sent on to the twins? Of course, Roland said. They're perfectly safe. No one's going to try for the twins at Siege Fabra, Alia said. 139 not with all of those Stilgar-trained guards around. Idaho stared at her. He had no particular datum to reinforce an argument based on Mendit computations, but he knew. This thing he'd experienced came very close to the visionary power which Paul had known. Neither Roland nor Ilya would look at and men from him. I'd like to alert the port authorities against allowing the importation of any outside animals, he said. You're not taking Roland's suggestion seriously, Alia protested. Why take any chances, he asked. Tell that to the smugglers, Alia said. I'll put my dependence on the house ferrets. Idaho shook his head. What could house ferrets do against claws the size of those envisioned? But Alia was right. Bribed in the right places, one acquiescent guild navigator, and any place in the anti-quarter became a landing port. The guild would resist a front position in any attacks on House Atrides, but if the price were high enough. The guild could only be thought of as something like a geological barrier which made attacks difficult, but not impossible. They could always protest that they were just a transportation agency. How could they know to what use a particular cargo would be put? Alia broke the silence with a purely Fremen gesture, a raised fist with thumb horizontal. She accompanied the gesture with a traditional expletive which meant, I give Typhoon conflict. She obviously saw herself as the only logical target for assassins, and the gesture protested the universe full of undigested threats. She was saying she would hurl the death wind at anyone who attacked her. Idaho felt the hopelessness of any protest. He thought that she no longer suspected him. He was going back to Tabra and she expected a perfectly executed abduction of the Lady Jessica. He lifted himself from the divan in an adrenaline surge of anger, thinking, if only Alia were the target. If only assassins could get to her. For an instant, he rested his hand on his own knife, but it was not in him to do this. Far better, though, that she die a martyr than live to be discredited and hounded into a sandy grave. Yes, Alia said, misinterpreting his expression, as concern for her. You'd best hurry back to Tabra. And she thought, how foolish of me to suspect Duncan. He's mine, not Seven Asakas. It had been the demand from the tribe that upset her, Alia thought. 140 She waved an airy goodbye to Idaho, as he left. Idaho left the council chamber feeling hopeless. Not only was Dahlia blind with her alien possession, but she became more insane with each crisis. She'd already passed her danger point and was doomed. But what could be done for the twins? Whom could he convince? Stilgar? And what could Stilgar do that he wasn't already doing? The Lady Seven Jessica, then? Yes, he'd explore that possibility and edge, but she, too, might be far gone in plotting with her sisterhood. He cared few illusions about that Atride's concubine. She might do anything at the command of the Bean Gesserit and edge even turn against her own grandchildren. Good government never depends upon laws, but upon the personal qualities of those who govern. The machinery of government is always subordinate to the will of those who administer that machinery. The most important element of government, therefore, is the method of choosing leaders. Law and Governance, the Spacing Guild Manual. Why does Alia wish me to share the morning audience? Jessica wondered. They've not voted me back into the council. Jessica stood in the anteroom to the keep's great hall. The anteroom itself would have been a great hall anywhere other than Arrakis. Following the Atrides League, buildings in Arrakeen had become ever more gigantic, as wealth and power concentrated, and this room epitomized her misgivings. She did not like this anteroom with its tiled floor depicting her son's victory over Schadenforth. She caught a reflection of her own face in the polished plasteel door which led into the great hall. Returning to Dune forced such comparisons upon her, and Jessica noted only the signs of aging in her own features. The oval face had developed tiny lines and the eyes were more brittle in their indigo reflection. She could remember when there had been white around the blue of her eyes. Only the careful ministrations of a professional dresser maintained the polished bronze of her hair. Her nose remained small, mouth generous, and her body was still slender, 141, but even the mean Gesserit-trained muscles had a tendency toward slowing with the passage of time. Some might not note this and say, you haven't changed a bit. But the Sisterhood's training was a two-edged sword. Small changes seldom escaped the notice of people thus trained. And by lack of small changes in Alia had not escaped Jessica's notice. Javid, the master of Alia's appointments, stood at the great door, being very official this morning. He was a rogue genie with a cynical smile on his round face. Javid struck Jessica as a paradox, a well-fed Fremen. Noting her attention upon him, Javid smiled knowingly, shrugged. His attendance in Jessica's entourage had been short, as he'd known it would be. He dated Atrides, but he was Alia's man in more ways than one, if the rumors were to be believed. Jessica saw the shrug, thought, this is the age of the shrug. He knows I've heard all the stories about him and he doesn't care. Outer civilization could well die of indifference within it before succumbing to external attack. The guards Fernie had assigned her before leaving for the smugglers and the desert hadn't liked her coming here without their attendance. But Jessica felt oddly safe. Let someone make a martyr of her in this place, Alia wouldn't survive it. Alia would know that. When Jessica failed to respond to his shrug and smile, Javid coughed, a belching disturbance of his larynx which could only have been achieved with practice. It was like a secret language. It said, we understand the nonsense of all this pomp, my lady. Isn't it wonderful what humans can be made to believe? Wonderful. Jessica agreed, but her face gave no indication of the thought. The anteroom was quite full now, all of the morning's permitted supplicants having received their right of entrance from Javid's people. The outer doors had been closed. Supplicants and attendants kept a polite distance from Jessica, but observed that she wore the formal black habit of a Fremen Reverend Mother. This would raise many questions. No mark of Muad'Dib's priesthood could be seen on her person. Conversations hummed, as the people divided their attention between Jessica and the small side door through which Alia would come to lead them into the great hall. It was obvious to Jessica that the old pattern which defined where the Regency's powers lay had been shaken. 142 I did that just by coming here, she thought. But I came, because Alia invited me. 111 Reading the signs of disturbance, Jessica realized Alia was deliberately prolonging this moment, allowing the subtle currents to run their course here. Alia would be watching from a spy hole, of course. Few subtleties of Alia's behavior escaped Jessica, and she felt with each passing minute how right she'd been to accept the mission which the Sisterhood had pressed upon her. Auteurs cannot be allowed to continue in this way, the leader of the Bene Gesserit delegation had argued. Surely the signs of decay have not escaped you and as you of all people. We know why you left us, but we know also how you were trained. Nothing was timid in your education. You are an adept of the panoplia prophetica, and you must know when the souring of a powerful religion threatens us all. Jessica had pursed her lips in thought, while staring out a window at the soft signs of spring at Castle Caledon. She did not like to direct her thinking in such a logical fashion. One of the first lessons of the sisterhood had been to reserve an attitude of questioning distrust for anything which came in the guise of logic. But the members of the delegation had known that, too. How moist the air had been that morning, Jessica thought, looking around Alia's anteroom. How fresh and moist. Here there was a sweaty dampness to the air which evoked a sense of uneasiness in Jessica, and she thought, I reverted to fireman ways. The air was too moist in this siege above ground. What was wrong with the master of the stills? Paul would never have permitted such laxness. She noted that Javid, his shiny face alert and composed, appeared not to have noticed the fault of dampness in the anteroom's air. Bad training for one born on Arrakis. The members of the Bene Gesserit delegation had wanted to know if she required proofs of their allegations. She's given them an angry answer out of their own manuals. All proofs inevitably lead to propositions which have no proof. All things are known, because we want to believe in them. But we have submitted these questions to Mendes, the delegation's leader had protested. Jessica had stared at the woman, astonished. Marvel that you have reached your present station and not yet learned the limits of Mendes, Jessica had said. At which the delegation had relaxed. Apparently it had all been a test, and she had passed. They feared, of course, that she 143 had lost all touch with those balancing abilities which were at the core of Bene Gesserit training. Now Jessica became softly alert as Javid left his door station and approached her. He bowed. My lady, it occurred to me that you might not have heard the latest exploit of the preacher. Dually WM% 8.114 minutes and 4,411 NG whirl occurs here, one Jessica said. Let him take that back to Alia. Javid smiled. Then you know he rails against your family. Only last night, he preached in the south suburb and no one dared touch him. You know why, of course. Because they think he's my son. Come back to them, Jessica said, her voice bored. This question had not yet been put to the Mendic Idaho, Javid said. Perhaps that should be done and the thing settled. Jessica thought, here's one who truly doesn't know a Mendic's limits, although he dares put horns on one, in his dreams, if not in fact. Mendics share the fallibilities of those who use them, she said. The human mind, as is the case with the mind of any animal, is a resonator. It responds to resonances in the environment. The Mendic had learned to extend his awareness across many parallel loops of causality and to proceed along those loops for long chains of consequences. Let him chew on that. This preacher doesn't disturb you, then? Javid asked, his voice abruptly formal and portentous. I find him a healthy sign, she said. I don't want him bothered. Javid clearly had not expected that blunt a response. He tried to smile, failed. Then, the ruling council of the church which deifies thy son will, of course, bow to your wishes, if you insist. But certainly some explanation perhaps you'd rather, explained, while I fit into your schemes, she said. Jadico stared at her narrowly. Madam, I see no logical reason why thou refusest to denounce this preacher. He cannot be my son. I make a reasonable request, denounce him. This is a set piece, Jessica thought. Alia put him up to it, she said. No, but he defiles the name of my son. He preaches abominable things, cries out against thy holy daughter. He incites the populace against us. When asked, he said that even thou possessest the nature of evil and that died. Enough of this nonsense. Jessica said. Tell Alia that I read 144 views. I've heard nothing but tales of this preacher, since returning. He bores me. I 112 I feel does it bore thee, madam, to learn that MS latest file whereas he has said that thou wilt not turn against him. And here, clearly, thou embeds evil, as I am, I still won't denounce him, she said. It is no joking matter, madam. Jessica waved him away angrily. Begone. She spoke with sufficient carrying power that others heard, forcing him to obey. His eyes glared with rage, but he managed a stiff nose and returned to his position at the door. This argument fitted neatly into the observations Jessica already had made. When he spoke of Alia, Javid's voice carried the husky undertones of a lover, no mistaking it. The rumors no doubt were true. Alia had allowed her life to degenerate in a terrible way. Observing this, Jessica began to harbor the suspicion that Alia was a willing participant in abomination. Was it a perverse will to self-destruction? Because surely Alia was working to destroy herself and the power base which fed on her brother's teachings. Faint stirrings of unease began to grow apparent in the anteroom. The aficionados of this place would know when Alia delayed too long, and by now they'd all heard about Jessica's peremptory dismissal of Alia's favorite. Jessica sighed. She felt that her body had walked into this place with her soul creeping behind. Movements among the courtiers were so transparent. The seeking out of important people was a dance like the wind through a field of cereal stalks. The cultivated inhabitants of this place furrowed their brows and gave pragmatic rating numbers to the importance of each of their fellows. Obviously her rebuff of Javid had hurt him. Few spoke to him now. But the others. Her trained eye could read the rating numbers in the satellites attending the powerful. They do not attend me, because I am dangerous. She thought I have the stink of someone Alia fears. Jessica glanced around the room, seeing eyes turn away. They were such seriously futile people that she found herself wanting to cry out against their ready-made justifications for pointless lives. Oh, if only the preacher could see this room. As it looked now, a fragment of a nearby conversation caught her attention. A tall, slender priest was addressing his coterie. No doubt Supply 145 can't hear under his auspices. Of 10 I must speak otherwise than I think, he said. This is called diplomacy. The resultant laughter was too loud, too quickly silenced. People in the group thought that Jessica had overheard. My duke would have transported such a one to the farthest L-and-tiled frailty that can I point tyrannical none too soon. She knew, now that she lived on faraway Caledon in an insulated capsule which had allowed only the most blatant of Alia's excesses to intrude. I contributed to my own dream existence, she thought. Caledon had been something like that insulation, provided by a really first-class frigate riding securely in the hold of a guild hailiner. Only the most violent maneuvers could be felt, and those, as mere softened movements. How seductive it is to live in peace, she thought. The more she saw of Alia's court, the more sympathy Jessica felt for the words reported as coming from this blind creature. Yes, Paul might have said such words on seeing what had become of his realm. And Jessica wondered what Bernie had found out among the smugglers. Her first reaction to Arakeen had been the right one, Jessica realized. On that first ride into the city with Javid, her attention had been caught by armored screens around dwellings, the heavily guarded pathways and alleys, the patient watchers at every turn, the tall walls and indications of deep underground places revealed by thick foundations. Arakeen had become an ungenerous place, a contained place, and reasonable and self-righteous in its harsh outlines. Abruptly the enteroom's small side door opened. A vanguard of priestess Amazon skewed into the room with Alia shielded behind them, frothy and moving with a confined awareness of real and terrible power. Alia's face was composed, no emotion betrayed itself, as her gaze caught and held her mother's. But both knew the battle had been joined. At Javid's command, the giant's doors into the great hall were opened, moving with a silent and inevitable sense of hidden energies. Alia came to her mother's side, as the guards enfolded them. Shall we go in now, mother? Alia asked. It's quite high time, Jessica said. And she thought, seeing the sense of gloating in Alia's eyes, she thinks she can destroy Ma and remain unscathed. She's mad. And Jessica wondered if that might not have been what Idaho had wanted. He'd sent a message, but she'd been unable to 146 respond. Such an enigmatic message, danger. Must see you. It had been written in a variant of the old Chickasaw, where the particular word chosen to denote danger signed up it. I'll see him immediately, when I return to Tabra, she thought. This is the fallacy of power. Ultimately it is effective only in an absolute, unlimited universe. But the basic lesson about a relativistic universe is that things change. Any power must always meet greater power. Paul Muad'Dib taught this lesson to the Sardaukars on the plains of Arakeen. His descendants have yet to learn the lesson for themselves. The preacher at Arakeen, the first supplicant for the morning audience, was a Kadeshian troubadour, a pilgrim of the Hajj whose purse had been emptied by Arakeen mercenaries. He stood on the water-green stone of the chamber floor with no air of begging about him. Jessica admired his boldness from where she sat with Alia atop the 7-step platform. Identical thrones had been placed here for mother and daughter, and Jessica made particular note of the fact that Alia sat on the right, the masculine position. As for the Kadeshian troubadour, it was obvious that Javid's people had passed him for just this quality he now displayed, his boldness. The troubadour was expected to provide some entertainment for the courtiers of the great hall. It was the payment he'd make in lieu of the money he no longer possessed. From the report of the priest advocate who now pled the troubadour's case, the Kadeshian had retained only the clothing on his back and the balisset slung over one shoulder on a leather cord. He says he was fed a dark drink, the advocate said, barely hiding the smile which sought to twist his lips. If it please your holiness, the drink left him helpless but awake, while his purse was cut. Jessica studied the troubadour, while the advocate droned on and on with a false subservience, his voice full of mucky morals. The Kadeshian was tall, easily 2 meters. He had a roving eye which showed intelligent awareness and humor. His golden hair was worn to the shoulders in the style of his planet, and there was a sense of virile strength in the broad chest and 147 neatly tapering body which a grey-hatched robe could not conceal. His name was given as Tavir Mihandis, and he was descended from merchant engineers, proud of his ancestry and himself. Alia finally cut off the pleading with a hand wave, spoke without turning. The Lady Jessica will render first judgment in honor of her empty and to thank you, daughter, Jessica said, stating the order of ascendancy to all who heard. Daughter. So this Tavir Mihandis was part of their plan. Or was he an innocent dupe? This judgment was designed to open attack on herself, Jessica realized. It was obvious in Alia's attitude. 06, you play the instrument well? Jessica asked, indicating the 9-string balisset on the troubadour's shoulder, as well as the great Gurney Halleck himself. Tavir Mihandis spoke loudly for all in the hall to hear, and his words evoked an interested stir among the courtiers. You seek the gift of transport money, Jessica said. Where would that money take you? To Seleucia Secundus and Piramon's court, Mihandis said. I've heard he seeks troubadours and minstrels, that he supports the arts and builds a great renaissance of cultivated life around him. Jessica refrained from glancing at Alia. They'd known, of course, what Mihandis would ask. She found herself enjoying this byplay. Did they think her unable to meet this thrust? Will you play for your passage? Jessica asked. My turns are Fremen turns. If I enjoy your music,
So, see right there? So like I'm videotaping the stuff, like the machine more than anything else.
Did you just read that in a book and that's how you made it?
And I'm gonna upload it to YouTube.
Reminds me of like the oil rig.
Yeah, like kind of like a nodding donkey.
Yeah.
So
well,
here's, I'll show you some other ones that I did in
Did you
the
get those
past.
from the soldier store in Cambria?
So I have some more.
Remember? Oh, I think we had this conversation before. That's awesome. That's awesome sculpture. The hand. Love that.
You know what's kind of cool? Is like when you cast soldiers, you can cast like parks, you know. Like,
Oh, you should
that's
make
what
your
they
own
do as a
park?
hobby, like people in the backyard,
I
they
can see you
cast it.
creating your own. I'm glad you have your own workshop there.
Yeah, in trouble that way.
This is pretty brilliant. So are you
Have your
generating
mom seen
steam
it?
on your stove? Or are you generating
Yeah,
steam?
no,
Okay.
like a teapot.
Yeah.
Have your mom seen it?
I'm glad you're not boiling gas. I'm really relieved. Doesn't that person
don't know.
here? I
You
did.
want to see that?
I remember his mom made him get rid of a lot of his books. Yeah, remember? Is that what I'm saying?
Chris, can anybody do that? How much? Yes, you? How much? How much? How much, Chris? I have a job. All right.
Probably more now.
There's a song I want to play if I do that. So you're not flying.
Well, I'm into that too.
Right.
Yep. That's where you go out. That was like after I graduated from alcohol.
That's awesome, Chris. You have a charging service. That's a nice Templar.
Well, I don't remember. That's why I have to use it. I've been on a speed station on a couple. Like somebody,
Yeah, it's part of my gig. You know, I really. I yesterday I wrote it. No, I know. I was going to people like this. But I want to give you yes answer no. So you understand that? No. Yeah. Okay. Well, they didn't tell me March 7th. They didn't tell me anything about me. They just said, why come here tonight? Yeah, they just said she would come here the other night, and that's why instead of going there, I had to do it. We're going to try and get paid to do it. Me too, but if I start drinking vodka, I'll be homeless. I'm not kidding, like in 3 days.
Yeah,
No, I will be. I will pretend like I am.
He talked to me when one of his friends at apartment for breakfast. Oh my god. But then no, he was damn well. I got KG, the black guy, he took my fucking SIM card.
You guys want some of this?
I got a SIM card.
I gotta defrost it first. It'll take a
But I
while.
didn't realize that, that's the whole thing, I didn't realize that he started showing up where I was, I got hired at Grocery Outlet in Santa Barbara, and
You did?
yeah, and then there's a back, like, an alley or back street behind Grocery Outlet there, and I put my phone on fucking airplane mode. Like, I hardly used it. And then, when I got off work, I turned it off airplane mode as I was walking down that back street, went up the other street to get to State Street to go to the bus stop, and then who do I see? KG. He was in the opposite direction. He went down that back street, came back around, passing me from the bus, the Mr. Nice Guy that morning, but I think he was acquaintances with Stuart or Adrian.
And so Adrian has tried all the way to Santa Barbara from here.
Well, that's where he's originally from.
He's got a bad reputation up and down the
Hey,
coast.
black guy that approached me in Santa Barbara, I was wary of, but then,
He's got a bad rep up and down the coast, and he's still a
yeah, but
Canine
then,
man. You should see what they say about him on Reddit.
but that's the whole thing, he hasn't gone to court for just to kick his ass is probably going back to prison. Because all the cases that he already
Are
had,
they all against women?
basically, yeah, I think
Domestic violence?
yeah, the restraining order. What I use my,
Oh, I have a fruitcake.
what I use my stupid phone. That's how I used to check on my brother.
I have a snack.
You go to Santa Barbara courthouse.
Remember
website,
this guy, right?
You go to online.
Power off.
And you type in the person's name. It will pull up every single case that they have. Stupid fucking phone. This one is the brightness is going up and down by itself.
Would you like a cookie? A sea salt cookie? Brown butter?
I think it was anybody that
Here's an old
I was
fruitcake.
close to.
Right, Chris, you want an old fruitcake I gave me?
I'm fruity enough without the
I went to the
fruitcake.
sobering center in Santa Barbara. Because this guy David, for some reason, and that's the whole thing. Before I left the train station, that guy, I let him use my phone. I let him make a phone call. And after that, my phone,
Yeah.
like, so, I was like, how much, like, so I Googled, they can dial a phone number and, from that they can hack into your
Chris, can I
phone.
throw this away here?
Yeah.
I should go to your garbage.
My garbage is over here. I'll spread it.
I'm sorry, Chris.
And that's the whole thing. It's called
I
60.
didn't realize how bad the fruitcake was when you gave it to me today for free. And now I know it.
And then I told him before I left. I said, look at me right now, man. I said, what was that number that you called? And he wouldn't look at me. I said, this is the number. If you Google, he was saying, how the fuck did they fuck with my phone this time?
Am I wrong?
With that older black guy, I gave him my phone number, and I know from before in the past, playing Super they can download the app. If they have your phone number, they can track you. And I gave that fucking idiot my phone number before. See? But then I was like trying to figure it out. And
Well, that would be a great t-shirt. You could wear that
I was
around
thinking,
here.
Phil Trainer, Adrian Trainer, Edith Trainer. Yesterday, and then, oh no. I'm just trying to say, they don't know what I'm doing.
Well, just consider
No,
it.
I know.
You can have a camera on it.
That's using my library.
Well, if you want to put it there.
Well, no, because they literally, that's what I'm saying. You know, I do have that guy in Santa Barbara, once he started showing up, like he's actually, like, weird.
Why would you really talk to our church?
And then I thought, oh, that was
Why would you really talk to us?
And then when I go to the building center, like, I called my T-Mobile, and like, no, my phone was in my data was super high. That was my phone was excellent. I haven't used my fucking phone. That's one of the times because the data is super high.
I forgot to use it.
They sent me a new phone under warranty, and then after that, I knew from before in the past, like when I was researched it, but they, and that's the thing, they use your item number, your serial number, and if they have that, no, they can fucking fuck with your phone. And then, or your SIM card number. So when I got the new phone, after a while, my phone was still acting like funny. And then I just hit the check, and then it was no SIM card. So I called T-Mobile back, and told me the SIM card is out of people. And when I got the phone, I decided to talk about my SIM card. I need a SIM card. Everybody has a phone. Everybody has Google. Look it up. Don't be ignorant.
About maybe some salsa. So like whenever I can do whatever she says. She's got some stuff like I've seen them on, they're on YouTube.
I love Bill Poet. He has the ABC. Yes, I love Bill Poet. He has a great
Down there.
Yes.
Go up right close.
Yes. Yes. Me. Yeah. Me.
So you know how to have that.
If you really want me to try, I can email him my number. I did talk to him on the phone. Well, I don't really see him. I talk to him. So I'll check in with him.
So do you know how to have that thing that's on in the table? Some of the old guys would have training for it. But you will train when they told kids.
So they have a show in Haiti every year with Bill Poet.
Right, I got the application. Talk to
This might actually be the show.
I have some money here for you. $7 right there.
part. You can tell it's clean. Nice depending on certain libraries. You can tell it's even I don't really set my factory settings. That school in Santa Barbara, like, before they fucking, like, he kept talking about how he got his neighbors hacking with his kid, and he's like, you know, you set factories on shit. And then after the fact, but I didn't let any, I looked like at the train station, touch my phone, and the little black guy, as long as I have my time cards, I can only
It's his daughter, I think. Don't tell his daughter.
it's not expensive, but I didn't have to fuck
Their family had the plant. They bought it from Mexico.
Oh, seriously, yeah, like, television show. You can put it on anymore.
Eating people.
So I think that's, okay, the thing's
Thank
ready.
you.
Like my dad used to always say, kid, you'll figure it out.
This is
Go
Templar,
figure it out.
nice Templar. And then I saw you today.
Let me, I might turn the video off. Let's see. Okay, maybe go a few more minutes. Or I guess I'll turn it off.